Sure.
Okay. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I actually got to know later in the process that it's very difficult to get you, actually. So
depends on the day.
so it's so much fun actually having you here. So first question, what really happens in the office here in Geneva? What are some activities that happen here in the office?
There's a huge amount of activities.
Okay, just give us a short break.
For example, we manage close to 12,000 meetings a year.
Wow.
Now that's not particularly interesting. What is interesting is to know what happens in those meetings.
Okay.
And there is, in all of these meetings, there's a number of activities that cover practically every aspect of human life, everyday life.
Okay.
The work that happens not just in this building, but in Geneva, more broadly in what we call International Geneva, is the lives of every single person on this planet, every single day. When you wake up in the morning till you go to bed, there's hundreds of things that happen during your day that you're not even aware of because you take for granted. That all were things that were discussed, decided, and implemented somewhere in this town, and a lot of it in this building, just on the second floor above us.
Wow, great. All right, so let's move from the office here to New York, right?
Yes.
So there's been so much attention in New York for a while because the election for the next SG is coming up very soon, and we earlier discussed, so we're not going to go into like much details, but to talk about your expectations for what do you think the next XG should be like? What are you looking forward? I mean, without calling any
No, we're not going to talk about names because we are deeply into the process.
True.
And there will be more names coming.
Sure.
What we need, in my mind, is what we always need for this post, but perhaps more so in today's fragmented world than ever before, is somebody with a moral voice, somebody that people can trust, somebody that embodies the fact that the UN is more than the sum of its parts. Somebody who has a strong managerial experience, who has strong diplomatic capacities, somebody who is not afraid to speak truth to power, but at the same time is a team builder. We are facing a world in which we are going to have to change the way we work, the whole UN system and its partners. And in order to do that, it has to be a collaborative effort, both within the organization, between organizations, and between system and member states. And that will require some strong leadership from top, and both in the UN but also in the different capitals. But since you asked me about the Secretary General, whether it's a man or woman, it's important that that person has the experience and the strength and the moral voice that will bring back the trust of people in a system that actually has such an important impact and relevance to every single person's lives. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about your story now. People look up to you. A lot of people around the world look up to you. Personally, I look up to you. I read a couple of stories about you, your biography, and everything, and it was really inspiring seeing how far you've come. So I just wanted to just give us a breakdown of your early life, how you grew up, and how you got to where you are now, like a summarized version of it.
Well, my dad was a diplomat.
Okay. Oh.
We moved around the world a lot. I grew up in many different parts of the world. My father was Danish, my mother was French. My grandmother was Polish. So I already started with the seeds of the United Nations.
Yeah, the family.
So we moved around a lot. I, in the process, picked up a few languages that have been very helpful.
Yeah.
And then after my studies, which I also did in different places, both in Italy and in the United Kingdom, university studies.
Yeah.
Schooling I did in different countries as well and in different languages. I entered the UN. I started at the bottom of the food chain, the very lowest you can possibly be in terms of professional grade, in the High Commission for Refugees here in Geneva back in 1979. And then I made it my business to move both to apply for jobs both in headquarters settings and in field settings, and in and out, so that I gave myself as broad a basis experience and expertise as possible. Also between issues, so I've done humanitarian, I've done political, I've done economic and social, I've done human rights issues, I've done managerial things. So as you move up the ladder in pyramid narrows,
Yeah.
the more competencies you give yourself within a system in which you work, the better off, of course, you're off, and that's what I try to do very consciously. I was also very lucky when I started my job. I was given very early on, because of the historical moment that happened, I was given responsibilities that under normal circumstances somebody at my level, my age, would never have gotten. There was a huge refugee explosion in UNHCR, for whom I worked, expanded very rapidly, and so those of us who had just come in very young were given responsibility levels that we wouldn't normally have had, and that taught me a lot of things.
Yeah.
One of the things that it taught me, that has stood in good stead over the years, is how to make the system work almost in spite of itself sometimes. Every bureaucracy has its strictures, its ways of doing business, etc. Sometimes you need to move quickly, especially when you work in a humanitarian setting where it's a matter of life and death very often. You need to know which buttons to press in which sequence in order to get the right response and the right implementation as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So that was a good school, and that has been put to good use in other jobs as I moved up.
Okay. So, what would you say are the 3 values that have helped you aspire to get to the point you are? So, young people who are listening to this, of course, Facebook and all of that, can learn from you. What are those 3 values, the 3 things you think have stood out to you and gotten you to where you are?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is tolerance.
Okay.
And very important, particularly when you work in different cultural settings where you cannot afford, neither can the substance that you deal with afford for you to look at the way other people live with your cultural glasses. You need to be open and to be accepting of the way the way other people act, the way they live, the way they think. You need good people skills.
Yeah.
You need to be able to interact, to create friendships, to not to judge, but to embrace, and also to give take. It's not just an accepting posture, but you also have to be able to communicate and to give of yourself and of your experiences that can be helpful to those you are working with and who you're working for. I think languages important.
Yeah.
Although English, of course, becomes more and more ubiquitous, but nevertheless, if you can speak to someone in his or her maternal language, particularly when you are in institutions where you're working in their country, and you show that you are ready to learn about their culture and ready to learn their language, you give yourself a major advantage in being able to work efficiently. What you're doing.
Okay. All right. So you said 2, 3. The third one would be
prepare yourself. I think things don't come falling from the sky. You need to study, you need to work, you need to keep your knowledge up to date. You need to be curious. You need to be looking out for learning opportunities throughout your life, and have that curiosity gene, keep that alive. And I think also one principle, that particularly when you work in big organizations, you have to keep in mind, and it sounds maybe a little harsh, but it's the truth. There's only one person that looks out for you. That's yourself. You have to keep that in mind. If you rely on others to move you forward and to take care of your career and to take care of your well-being, of course people will do so, but don't take it for granted. You have to create your own public and profile so that you are palatable to your bosses and to the people that your organization work for. And that's if that's what you want. If you want to harm, some people are not particularly ambitious. They like what they're doing and they won't stay there. But if you actually want to build on what learning and where and want to move upwards in an organization, then you need to work at it. Luck is something you create.
Sure. All right. So finally, the session we have called my SDGs.
Yes.
I usually get, whoever I interview to tell me what his or her favorite SDGs are, and what you personally do to contribute to the achievement by 2030.
You have a few hours.
Yeah.
But I think, you see, it's a very difficult question to answer because the more I get to know and the more I work on these SDGs, the more it's apparent that they're all completely interlinked.
Sure.
But so, if I should pick one, I would pick 17, which is one that kind of encompasses all of them and that pushes us to work in a much more collaborative way and an integrated way. And I do a lot of work on that here. I'm keenly aware of the fact that, first of all, the SDGs as a cover for all the other frameworks that we were given by the international community last year, COP21, the Paris Agreement, Sendai for the reduction of risks and catastrophes, the financing for development, and that is all of these things come together under the umbrella of the SDGs, and that is our collective roadmap. Everybody's on this planet's roadmap. It's not something that we delegate to our governments, although they of course have a very important role. But businesses, academics, the media, whatever, all of us, you and I, every one of us as an individual.
Sure.
And so, in order for that to happen, and in order for really to operationalize the fact that these are universal objectives, and that the focus of responsibility has moved to the individual rather as well as to the community, we need to figure out ways of working together, all of us. That is not embedded in our DNA and the structural base of many organizations. So there's a lot of work to do to push for greater integration, greater collaboration across issues, across silos, across organizations. So I spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to come up with ways of doing so. So you have to tweak the organization, you have to come up with new ideas, you have to come up with new structures, you have to come up with very imaginative and informal ways of convincing those you work with, both our partners and our colleagues, that it's in their own best interest to collaborate better. And it's working. The problem we have is that time is short. You can do it in an organic way. It will take a couple of decades for an organization to change. We can't afford that. So we have to move faster, and we're trying to figure out how to do that. The good news is that the degree of appropriation by practically everybody of these goals is something I've never seen before. The speed, the breadth, and the depth with which businesses, NGOs, governments, communities, cities, individuals have grasped these and are running with them, are changing the way they work, the way they look at things, the way they measure success, their business models, if you're a business, is quite extraordinary, and there's a lot of hope in that. We just need to figure out a way of capturing all these different initiatives and strands and make, somehow weave a really strong carpet of them so that it can sustain the future.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Great. No.
No, it's live. It's live.
Oh, okay. So if you have questions for Mr. Moller, do send them to me, and I'll forward them